morning. I'm Ann Brennan. I am with ASMM Digital's Small Business Connections podcast. We're the podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. Our goal with every episode, today included, is to give you something you can walk away with and put to work in your business. It's why we do this. We do it for two reasons. Actually, I lie. We do it to give you something you can walk away with, but we also do it to get small businesses in front of other people. So everybody I have on here is the owner of a small business. Every single person who comes on owns a small business somewhere in the world. And my goal is to help them get in front of you as well, but they always have to bring value. You've noticed that we don't do a whole lot of selling on the show. That's not what it's about. It really is about giving you something of value. But I am going to ask you for something. I'm going to ask you to subscribe. Subscribe on YouTube at Brennan and Annie, or subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast. It helps me a lot. The other thing that helps me is if you can leave a review. So if you're listening on Apple Music or Google Podcasts or wherever you're listening, if you can take a minute, leave a review, it does help me. I'm also a small business owner, so it's very helpful to me if you can do that. So I have a special guest today. I have Brian Loebig. You guys have seen him before. He's been on the show before, but I wanted to bring him back. I met Brian in May, and he's had a big effect on my life this year. I joined his networking group. I've learned a lot about him. I learned a lot from him. Probably more importantly, I learn a lot from him, a lot. And I think most people who know him do. So I'm really excited about bringing him on. Here you go. Hi, Brian. How are you?
Good. How's it going?
Good, good. So we've had a few technical difficulties as we've tried to get set up today, but I'm glad we got going. So, Brian, tell people, because we're sort of in the same industry, tell people what you do.
Well, I consider myself an internet or digital marketing strategist with a special focus on search engine optimization. 50% of my business is helping small business and entrepreneurs get visible in online, including organic Google search results, or just in general. One of the things I talk a lot about is personal branding, SEO, how to get more visible online even without a website.
Right. Yeah. And I that's probably when I fell a little in love with you and what you do. Is I went to your personal branding. You did a personal branding presentation, and I sat there, and I've done this for years, and I've had a personal brand for years, and still I took a whole page full of notes and walked away and went, oh my gosh, there's so much left to do. So you're really good at what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about kind of an eclectic bunch of things today, right? We're going to talk about everything from networking to time management to diversity. And then finally, what's up next in digital marketing? So let's start with networking, because that's how we met. We met through BNI. You do a lot of networking, though, not just with BNI. You do a lot. So talk a little bit about why you do it and kind of what your strategy is with it.
Why I do it? I think it fulfills a need I have in my life to connect with diverse people. So I got involved with BNI. I learned about BNI, Business Networking International, from a webinar when I moved to the DC area, and when I found the closest chapter to where I live, and it was like 3 miles away. And it's my first meeting there. I was sold the first meeting. I saw all the referrals passing around the room. Everybody really knew each other. I could tell it was like a really strong camaraderie there. It was totally different than these. I have a love-hate relationship with some networking groups. Like some professional networking is like going to a mixer and then trying to start up awkward conversation with the people. I'm more of an introvert. It's hard for me to I've gotten over it, but
Right.
I know how to deal with it. But it's more. It feels very contrived when you're going to a group and you don't know anybody, and everybody's trying to sell themselves. That's not my kind of networking.
Right. So I'll tell you a trick that I learned, and it doesn't always work, because if you know nobody in the room, you know nobody in the room, right? But one of the tricks I used, because I'm an extrovert, I'm about as extroverted as they come.
Agreed.
So, however, I still struggle, especially if people don't know me. If I walk in a room and everybody knows me, I'm completely comfortable with that. When they don't, I get nervous. So when I first started this business and I thought, how am I going to network? I decided what I would do instead of trying to network to build my business. I figured it would build this way,
Hmm.
but I was just going to introduce people to each other.
Hmm.
So I would walk in a room and say, who do I know and why should they know each other? And
Hmm.
so I still use that. If I walk into a room, like who can I introduce to somebody else? Because eventually it'll come back to me in a way that helps my business. But if
Interesting.
I'm helping their business, it's a great way to do it.
That's a great strategy. One of the things I do when I go into a networking group is my goal is just to meet and know one person like very well. And so it's
Uh-huh.
sometimes it could be random if I don't know anybody. I'll introduce myself to somebody, and then my goal will be to just get to know and to know them and their business and what they do, who they are, and and really have no goal of selling myself or even talking about myself. Like I'll have the total focus on them. If they start asking me about myself, then I'll tell them. But my initial goal is just total focus on the other person, learn who they are, and then usually natural connections and natural kind of things we have in common or people we know, like 9 times out of 10 that shows up, and you can start seeing potential there for, if not for business, for just relationship and who they're connected to and what you might have in common, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Well, and that's what people have to think about. Networking is about building relationships, right?
Right.
It's really the key. As you were saying that, it occurred to me, you're a runner as well.
Yep.
And my father-in-law used to do this thing. And what you're saying sounds a lot like what he did. We would run together. And, clearly he's a lot older than I because he's my husband's father. But we would run together. And at the beginning of the run, he would start asking me questions.
Hmm.
And he would, all the way through the run, he would ask me questions and I'm having a talk. And finally one day I said, "You're killing me. What are you doing?" He says, "Well, if you're talking, I can breathe easier." I was like,
Good strategy.
oh, it's a good strategy, but it's similar strategy to what you said. You go into the room, you let them talk about themselves, you get to know them, and people like to talk about themselves. So
Exactly.
it's you're giving them something they want. So that's
Yep.
really, yeah, that's
Yep.
very helpful. So, well, let's talk about one of the things I think you do well. You're strategic. You're strategic in everything you do. And so I
Not
know
every.
that not everything, no. But in your business, you're very strategic. I mean, we just
Okay.
talked last night about you creating a spreadsheet for something that I was like, oh, I've never thought about creating a spreadsheet for that.
All right.
So you do things in a different way, and I like that. So what are some of your tips for people will go out, they'll meet people, and then either never see them again, not remember who they are, or never connect again. So what are some
Hmm.
of your practical tips for that to make sure that doesn't happen?
I always try to connect with people offline after I meet them online. And so if I'm getting a business card, my goal is not to run around and grab business cards from everybody. It's really to get to know just a couple people, kind of in depth. I really believe in the depth is as opposed to breadth when it comes to networking. Like really 1 or 2 people at a 50-person networking group is fantastic. Getting to know those 1 or 2 people. And so I'll exchange, business cards, and then I'll check out their online properties and I'll follow them wherever they are. And so it's kind of, to me, it's like the platinum rule of networking as opposed to the golden rule. The golden
Uh-huh.
rule is like treating others the way you want to be treated. And then from a networking perspective is like following them from where your social media is. Well, I'm comfortable with Facebook, so I'm going to follow them on Facebook. Bad idea. My thought is use the platinum rule, which is follow them on their social media. So go to their website, find out what they're actively involved in, and then follow them on those platforms. Follow them on LinkedIn if they're LinkedIn people. If they're big on Twitter, follow them on Twitter and say hello to them on Twitter. Follow up with them on those platforms where they're active and present.
Yes. Yeah, and you're good at that. Actually, I noticed that um, I don't peep on Twitter. I spend a lot of time on Twitter. Most of the people on Twitter I don't know. But so you're one of a handful of people who I speak to on Twitter who I actually know in real life. So
Twitter is how I first was meeting people in this area. So we moved here to Washington, D.C. area from Richmond, Virginia. I knew nobody up here. And I started in the evenings, I would start connecting with people on Twitter, like locally. You can, if you do an advanced search on Twitter, it'll default. If you start searching for businesses or keywords on Twitter, the default radius is 15 miles on Twitter. And so, and you can even adjust that. And so I started searching for, people in similar industries and things. And I started making local connections just with people on Twitter. And I got my first client actually in the area from just doing some Twitter outreach and connecting.
That's great. That's really great. Yeah, that's how when I had my blog, it was all on Twitter. It was most of the, and as a matter of fact, still a lot of the people who follow me on Twitter are runners.
Oh
It's
yeah,
it's from that area. Those people, those are my people. So yeah.
you
All
tried.
right. Exactly. That's my tribe. So I want to talk a little bit about meeting and time management because especially right now, I feel like I am on Zoom all the time. I'm in meetings with people all the time. And you said to me, we do in BNI, we do one-to-ones. These are meetings where we meet with another member of the group, one-to-one, you sit, you talk, you learn about them, right? And that's so we do these all the time, but you only do those on Fridays.
Right. So
Right.
I'm like you. Like people are very, especially you start networking a lot. People want to meet with you. Like I do presentations all the time. Like I'm a director consultant for BNI, so I'm going around to other chapters and telling, giving them best practice advice. And there's hundreds of BNI members in this area. And when you start doing that, people like want to follow up with you and like, hey, can I meet with you? And so I could do nothing else but just have meetings with people all day long, every day, 7 days a week if I didn't organize my time. And so what I'll do is I'll really focus on Fridays as that one-on-one networking time with people outside of my particular networking chapter, or even in our chapter. I prefer to do those meetings on Friday so that this is organized. It's like I know those are meeting times available. I really try to keep Friday open for those kind of meetings. It makes me very productive. I don't have to schedule. Like some people have Calendly and it's like pick a time and they've got all these times all throughout the week available. To me, that's still is too. I like to be more organized. Like all my meetings for networking is going to be on Friday. I know that's when it's going to be. That my focus is going to be on that. I'll be able to really tune into that individual person. I won't be worrying about emails coming in or problems happening. I'm organizing my life around that very important task of having those one-on-one meetings with people, because one-on-one meetings in our type of business networking in BNI really need to be, it's not just shooting the breeze, it's strategic. Like I'm really looking and thinking about how I can refer somebody to them. What's a good referral for them? Who do I know that can benefit their business? I'm actually looking on LinkedIn. We're talking about the type of services they do. Who on my team could I refer that person to get them business? So it has to be total attention. I can't be worried about all the 50 other things that are going on, in my week. So Friday really helps that.
Right. Well, I want to go back to we were talking about, you said BNI and how strategic it is. So I do want to go back to that a minute because I think they think negatively of networking. They think I'm doing this to get something.
Mm,
And you're not, you definitely wouldn't spend as much time networking if you didn't think you were going to get business from it.
right.
But what I love about BNI in particular is that idea of the giver's gain. And it allows you to let go of the wanting and kind of pulling things towards you. And
Yes.
you're saying instead what you do in a meeting. And as a matter of fact, my realtor came by yesterday to drop off at the realtor who we settled on this house with. She came by to drop off a gift. And as I was talking to her, I was like, oh, you should meet Kenny who does home automation. And you know who else you should meet? And I'm going through my list and it was totally out of not just trying to sell her on these people in my group, but she needs these people. These are people she needs. And so there is this generosity that you feel that you're like, I'm giving back. I'm giving to other people. And eventually that turns around and comes back to you.
And the feeling about it too is different when you're not when people in your networking group are not trying to hard sell you on their services. They're not trying to twist your arm to get you to refer them. My approach is I really am not trying to sell my services. I want everybody to know what I do. I want them to know like the best referral partners that drive my business. But I'm not gonna hound them. I'm not gonna say where's my referral this week. I'm really focused on, it's counterintuitive, but I'm really focused on their goals and what they need to accomplish and how I can help them, not how they can help me. It's like really others, putting others first, literally, because people can see
Absolutely.
quickly through if you're just, talking to them to try to get something out of them. People see through that very quickly,
Yeah, absolutely. There are sales coaches out there and there are people who, and we're probably completely off base in what I'm thinking here, but I'm just going to say it anyway. I think I'm a better salesperson because of BNI.
Oh,
I think I'm a better salesperson because I have learned this way of of giving first. And so even when I'm meeting with a client that I know I'm, meant to be there to sell him my product, I'm listening first. What does he really need? Instead of telling him what he needs, I'm finding out what he needs. And I think that comes a lot from, I started in BNI 3-4 months after I started this business. Maybe not even that. And so I do think that I became a better salesperson because I learned to network in a way that is more giving than taking.
How did you? So if you started that type of professional networking through BNI 3 months after you started your business, how did you first hear about BNI?
So it's a kind of a roundabout way. There was a group in my community who had started basically an anti-BNI meeting, and I joined it. And they had all the same rules. It was we're not BNI, we're not BNI, we are not BNI. They kept saying, I didn't know what BNI was, so I didn't care whether they were or not. But
Right.
Every time I would try to set up a one-to-one with somebody, because you're supposed to do one-to-ones, they would say to me, have you joined the group yet? I'm like, I joined 3 months ago. I'm here every week. I don't understand why you're asking me. So you don't want to do a one-to-one with me until I've joined the group. But I did join the group. So I was already aggravated. And then I went to a local networking meeting because I was trying to meet people. I didn't have business. I wasn't in this business. I didn't know people in the business world.
Is that here in Montgomery County, Maryland?
No, it was out in Millersville.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so Severna Park actually, and I was at Romulo's in Severna Park, and this guy Jerron Rice, he owns Magothy Payments, and if you ever meet Jerron, you'll go, oh, okay, I get it. He is like, as soon as he saw me, he's like, what networking groups do you belong to? So he's totally working the BNI one-to-one, the givers, the gains worksheet, right? He's asking me all these questions that are all related to this gains worksheet.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, and I said, he said, but I don't love it. And he says, well, tomorrow I'm presenting at my BNI and I would love you to come. And I walked in. At the time I had 2 clients.
But that's
literally, that's all I had.
Pre-pandemic, when you could go to a live meeting in person, right?
Exactly. And I walked in, and the truth is, as I'm walking in, I've probably told this story. Hopefully I'm not boring our listeners, but I'm going to tell it anyway. As I'm walking into this meeting to see it for the first time and to meet Jerron's friends and his chapter, I get a text message, and it's from NASA, and it's from the NASA social people, and they say, you've been chosen to come to this rocket launch.
Wow.
On Wallops Island. I was so excited. I couldn't stand it. And so then I go in and I'm trying to talk to people, and all I can think is, oh my God, I get to go to a rocket launch. I get to go to a rocket launch. So when it was time for me to speak, I stood up and I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to tell you that I do social media and blogs and all of that, but I really can't tell you. I'm going to go to a rocket launch for NASA, and I'm going to get to tweet about it on social media. I'm going to get to talk about it on social media. I'm so excited. And before I left the room, I signed one of my biggest clients ever, actually. And I joined the group.
Interesting. That's a perfect example of, you people showing your passion, what you're interested. They know what you do with the social media, but you're really focused on, the things that excite you, the things that you're passionate about. People see that, they're attracted to it. It's like they want to do business with somebody like that, not somebody's trying to push them into a sale.
Absolutely. That was, and if you sit here, you go, I'm saying that I'm doing this thing for NASA, which was the coolest thing ever. If you ever get a chance to do it, I highly recommend it.
That's why it's so easy for me to refer clients to you. So we do a lot of similar services. We do web design, we do social media, we do, internet marketing. And however, I find opportunities to refer you clients because you have a specific, you work with very specific clients. You have a really expertise in like mental health and social. You really focus on social engagement, not necessarily on paid social media advertising, but really on that organic engagement. You're an expert at that. So when I have a client, I feel like they're going to be high need. They really need a team surrounding them to work on, to be that voice for them, like every day.
Right.
That's where, I see opportunities I can refer those type of clients to you where they would be too much for my team to deal with.
Right. And I love that. It's actually a really good example of how you can give back. You don't have to hold everything back here. I'm keeping all the business for myself. And when you start putting it out there, you start turning it out there. It works so much better for you. As a matter of fact, I completely stopped doing SEO and that end as soon as I joined your group. I'm like, I can just pass this over here. It's not
Yep.
an area I like at all. Why don't we give it to Brian? And it works
Hmm.
so well. It really does. So we're going to talk about next a little bit about diversity. And actually, we can dive pretty deep into this because this has been, 2020. We're recording this in 2020. It's going to come out in 2021. It was a year that this was brought to the forefront. I was going to say it was a bad year for diversity, but the truth is, this has been a problem for a very, very long time. It just came to the forefront. So, but there's value in surrounding yourself with people who are different than you.
Absolutely.
So, right. So let's talk a little bit about that.
I believe, I totally believe in the value of diversity from networking perspective, business, and just life in general. I come from a family of 11 brothers and sisters, and my parents, most of those are adopted. So I have 9 adopted brothers and sisters, and 10 of them, let's see, 9, 8, 8 of them are either biracial or Black. I have more Black brothers and sisters than I do white ones. And that just creates a whole different kind of perspective when you're growing up with kids, a whole diversity of kids that don't look like you in the 70s and, 80s.
Right.
None of my brothers and sisters have married within their own, racial, ethnic group. Actually, it opens the possibilities to life and relationships. And I've carried that over into the way I think about networking. My own digital team that I've hired, I think diversity first. So when I'm going out networking for groups, or when I'm looking for business partners, I'm always looking at I'm always thinking from how can I connect with somebody that's different than me? Like from a networking perspective, one of the ways we tend to, be around people that are like us, right? People that are in the same groups, people that go to the same type of church or the same schools and those kind of things. My family, we actually, because growing up in a very diverse household and seeing, benefiting from that diversity, we kind of seek out, diverse kinds of situations. So like even in life, like we moved to the Bethesda, my wife is a military doctor, or was. So that's the reason we moved here to Bethesda. It's predominantly white community, but there is some diversity here. And the diversity we found before we moved here was in high school wise was Bethesda Chevy Chase. It's the high school. It's the most diverse high school in the county. And so we moved to an area that had that diversity because our kids are biracial. And so we wanted them to have that diversity. We chose a church, and we decided to go to a church that's predominantly African American because I wanted my kids to see diversity in their faith life as well. And even with like networking groups, like a lot of BNI chapters tend to be old white guys, to be honest.
Right.
And,
right.
But you can change that as an individual. Like if you join a chapter, you can be the force of of diversity. Like bring in whoever is bringing in the visitors brings in new members. And so if you're connecting with other diverse kinds of groups, for example, one way you can meet other diverse groups if you're not from that group is like join a cultural chamber of commerce. There's a Hispanic chamber of commerce. There's a Black chamber of commerce. There's gay lesbian chambers of commerce.
Yep.
There's they're all the shades of the rainbow. And just because it's a Black chamber of commerce, Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce, for example, doesn't mean it's all Black people in that chamber of commerce. They invite and welcome everyone. All those chambers want everyone to join. It just has a mission of focusing on building up that particular community, which is fantastic. And so I myself have joined the Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce. And when I join something, I don't just join it kind of, I do things strategically. So when I join something, I want to participate in it and get the maximum value. So I joined that chamber and then got involved with the marketing committee because I have a background in marketing. That's a way I can give back to that committee. And it doesn't hurt that I stand out in those groups because I'm not African American myself.
Right, exactly.
It's open arms. They really welcome people from all shades of the rainbow. And so then those people I know, then I'll invite them to to my networking groups, my other groups, And then that's how I've gotten a real diverse area, a wide array of businesses that I've worked with. I would do work with quite a few Nigerians. There's a really strong Nigerian population in Silver Spring, Maryland. Downtown Silver Spring is like African diaspora. There's even co-working spaces that are dedicated to the like African diaspora, like tech startups. There's a group called IO Spaces. That's where I actually met the videographer in our group, Wesley.
Wesley.
We
Mm-hmm.
met at IO Spaces, which is run by a guy from Cameroon, and I actually rent out space there. Of course, it's African focused, but they welcome everybody.
Right.
I feel very comfortable there because I'm used to diversity, of course. But even like women focused things, a lot of times people feel like, well, it's a women focused group, you can't be involved with that as a man. I got a space at have you ever heard of Hera Hub co-working space in Northwestern?
No.
Hera Hub. It's a co-working franchise that's spreading across the country, and it's a women's focused co-working space. And so it's kind of like a spa. It's very cool. But it's, again, they open to everyone. So I know the owner. I used to work for a marketing firm, and I've done meetings there. I've gotten business and formed relationships with the women who are at Hera Hub.
Well, I like, Brian, what I want to talk about here. So it's interesting why you would do that. And for me, I'm going to go and again, I make a lot of confessions on the show. My family considers me to be much more man than woman. They're like, you're just not like a normal woman. You don't have the normal things that women care about. And so when I started this business, I started it without any thought about who I'm working with, other than I want to like you a lot, right? I have to like my clients. If I don't like my clients, I'm not going to work with them. Mm-hmm. And then I was on a plane on my way to Tampa, Florida, and I don't even know what I was listening to, but something sparked this idea that I was going to write down what all of my clients had in common. And I started writing things down that they have in common. All of my clients are big readers. They all care about learning a lot. It's this huge thing. We pass books back and forth. We all care about that. But the thing that surprised me is that all of my clients were men.
Interesting.
All of them. And then I started looking at my networking from there, and I went, oh, I only really network with men. And so I said to Ethan, my son, I don't understand why this is. And he says, Mom, you don't like women. And I was like, oh, I was like, that's horrible. That's not true. And I made an effort to start going out and joining women's groups and actually I started a civic dinner where I only invite women. And we would once a month, but this was before COVID. Hopefully we'll get back to it eventually. But I would meet with them once a month, and it changed the way I look at things. And it helped me personally to realize that I am a woman. So it's okay to hang out with women. But it also made me look at business in a little bit of a different way. I think the first thing I said to you about my business, you're like, how will you fit into this group? Because our group is unusual. We have 8 people who are within that digital marketing field.
Yep.
And so it crosses over a lot, and we kind of confuse people. They're like, well, who does what? And I said to you, well, I think that the way to explain me is I do the girly part of it, right? I do the touchy-feely part of social media. You said it well. I do the engagement piece.
Yep.
But I learned that part about me by hanging out with women, which doesn't seem diverse, except for it was diverse for my normal self, right? It was outside of my comfort zone.
Absolutely.
So, and I think that's true of, if you hang out with African Americans, if you hang out with, my group, my old group, B&I, was probably, it was a very religious group. I felt like when Ethan came out as transgender, I had to come out to this group and say, hey, this is the thing, because you guys talk about religion a lot, and you kind of voice your almost not really homophobic, but kind of edging that way views.
Mhm.
And I don't want you to ever say something that you think, oh my God, I said that in front of Ann. Now what? Right. So I'm like, I'm going to put it out there. But it's been really neat to watch their attitudes change having met Ethan. You know, Ethan actually subs for me a lot. He'll be subbing for me in the next bit for this BNI. But the same people who would say, "Oh, no, that's not what we, you know, we're kind of anti that," have really embraced him, and it's
You know,
changed the way they look at the world.
that is how lives are changed. And I mean, when you get into a relationship with somebody who's different than you, it's so that's why this Republican Democrat thing can get so strong, because we stay in our little, you know, political groups too. We congregate into our, and we all get into this group think, and we start thinking of other people outside of the group as the other, and they're bad, and that you start seeing them not even as human. So that I feel like when you start knowing people who are like transgendered, who are Republican, you know, strong Republicans, and you start, not just that you know them, like I know my neighbor's Republican and I hate him kind of thing. Like, you know them,
Right.
you actually like them. You actually get to know their family, their values. You see that they're not that different from yourself. You see that, you know, that we each have our intrinsic value, and that we have so much more in common than we do apart, truly. And it really starts
Absolutely.
to soften your, you know, your views, and change your own worldview, and how, you know, how we are, you know, we need to come together, how we are, you know, all related. We're all part of the human race.
Absolutely. I think it is so very true. And it's I'm going to go back to Ethan again for a minute and say that we had an experience with Ethan where we had a young man who was spending some time at our house, a lot of time at our house. And before he realized Ethan was trans, he said some really hurtful things.
Hmm.
And as the mom, my mama bear came out, and I was like, that's it, we're done with this guy. And Ethan said, wait, he's never met anybody like me. He's never spent time with anybody like me. If
Mhm.
we tell him to go away, then we're not helping him at all, which
Wow.
I thought was the most generous way of thinking, because I was so angry. And over a period of 3 years, and the two of them became close and would talk, and you know, became friends, and it did change this young man. But I think that's whatever we're doing, and we do ourselves a disservice if we're not including other people.
Absolutely. I mean, that
So
change happens outside of the comfort zone. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Business grows outside of your comfort zone. So, you know, being challenged by your customers, your clients, being challenged by your these different groups, like being uncomfortable when you're going to these groups, starting to develop those relationships, it forces you to really change the way you think about business, about relationships, about people. It helps challenge your assumptions about what you think an Asian person is, or how they speak. It changes how you think, you know, a black person is. If you don't have, you know, you might have that one black friend, but that one black friend might be actually like culturally from the majority. They might have been like my brothers and sisters. They're raised in the white community. They are.
Right.
They're not. They're. I wouldn't even consider them, when we were growing up, bicultural, where they can kind of live and work in the black community as well as the white community. They grew up totally in the white community. They were called Oreos, you know, when they grew
Right.
up, meaning they're black on the outside and white on the inside. Everything they did, all the schools, all their friendships. So they were the black person, my black friend. But really, culturally, they're caught, you know, they're from the majority predominant, you know, community. And so
Right.
really getting to know people from those culturally enriched, you know, communities really starts to help you understand and to see things differently.
Absolutely. Actually, I'm gonna. I have a great friend. She was on the show actually, Charlotte Rain, and she's from Denmark, and she knows this. But her husband, when I first met him, I couldn't stand him. His name's Lars, and I was like, I just can't stand him. And one day I said to another friend, I don't know what to do because I love Charlotte and I just can't stand this guy. And she says, but he's from Denmark. And I said, okay. And she says, well, he's Scandinavian. And I'm like, I know this. And she's like, no. She's like, no. So Scandinavians traditionally are they speak their mind. They say what they're thinking. They're not born and raised in a way to always be polite. It's a matter of their politeness is telling the truth,
Hmm.
And I was like, oh. And so I spent more time with him and I spent more time with Charlotte and I was like, okay. And it actually helped me because then I realized I don't have to be nice all the time.
Right.
I don't have to, hide this feeling because, and it just was a great way of seeing that different cultures have different ways of doing things and maybe you'll learn something from them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's true regionally too, like regional areas of the United States, like the Southern charm kind of culture, where you don't say a negative word about somebody in front of their face. You just add, bless her heart,
Oh,
and then
bless your heart. Yeah, exactly. Oh, oh, sweetie.
bless his heart.
Yeah, I say sweetie a lot. So, all right. Let's talk a little bit about because we've got two digital marketers on here. It was a big year for digital marketing. I talked a couple of weeks ago about the fact that for the first time, advertising dollars are going to be more on digital than on traditional marketing this year. It's set to be the case. So, what do you think is coming next, or what do you think that people need to know about digital marketing going forward?
Well, I've thought about this for probably the last 30 minutes, and I really believe private social networks actually are going to be even more enhanced in this coming year in 2021. So like private Facebook groups, for example, I think there's like almost zero organic engagement in on Facebook now for businesses. You really have to have a group like yours to generate significant organic engagement on those platforms. But private Facebook groups are getting a lot of visibility. Like it's the algorithm, the when you post something in a private Facebook group, you're notified and you're more engaged in it because it's around a subject you have an interest in. There's a new app out that's called Clubhouse. Have you heard about it?
No, I haven't.
Oh, so this is kind of a new trending thing. If you look at social media marketing world, it has a recent blog on it, and
Okay.
Clubhouse is kind of like an invitation only private Facebook group only on the Apple iOS device.
Okay.
And so
Interesting.
it's very interesting, and so I've been invited by somebody this close to me, Amelia Solutions here in DC area. She's very active on this platform, and I've learned about it. And it's basically creating conversations just through audio, so it's no video or anything like that. It's creating like these audio kind of breakout rooms where you can collaborate or talk to people about a specific interest or subject, and you can have very big influencers in these groups where you're able to actually talk in real time, to that person. But it's invitation only. It's kind of like nextdoor.com where you can't get on there unless somebody approves you, unless you get
Right.
an invite from it. So it's very exclusive, and
Right.
and they've kind of gamified it, so which is also what's making it grow. So I think those kind of exclusive private social networking groups, and anyway the businesses kind of or even social media platforms can kind of leverage those niche kind of, you've heard riches in the niches. I think that's true for
Right.
social media. I think that's going to be a growing trend. That's one of my thoughts about what's going to be a growing trend in 2021.
I think that makes total sense. And I'll tell you why I agree with you on this. I think people are lonely.
Hmm.
I think people want connections right now and they need them. I mean, to go back to the mental health part of it, they need connections. You need relationships. You need people. So I think I totally buy into that. And actually, it gives me a chance to talk about something that I did a one-to-one with a guy this week. If you haven't met this guy, you should. It's called Project Refit. It is really amazing. He's got an app. It's called Blue Skies. And if you're military, please go look at this. This is amazing. But his idea was, how do we show the military, veterans, that they're not alone,
Hmm.
right? And you see a lot of people. I don't know if you have friends who do this, but I have friends. Mark Hamilton. He does buddy checks on Facebook. He puts something up. He's like, I'm doing a buddy check in. How are you?
Hmm.
Right. Well, this lets you create, I think, a group of 5 people who you're like, these are my buddies. These are the people I know need to be checked on. and it allows you to check on them. It's a social media just for veterans and just for mental health.
Fantastic.
So it's a similar idea.
The same idea, exclusive social networking groups, right?
Yeah,
Very,
exactly.
yeah.
So I love it, and I love this guy. I often talk about burgers and bands kind of falling into my lap, like a gift from God. Here you go, and do something with this.
Mhm.
And when he talks about this, it's the same way. He was literally talking to somebody saying, "I wish I could do." And as he was talking, the whole idea of it, he said it was like otherworldly. It kind of came out of nowhere, and suddenly he's like, "And this is what I'm going to do." So it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. I think, I think that's what we're going to see this coming year is, and yes, this private group thing, but I also think you're going to see more people somehow connecting, and maybe it's business groups. Business groups can take advantage of this, but I think you're going to see a lot more of this sort of thing where people can get together and build relationships, because I think it's just we're too isolated right now, and everybody needs it.
Agreed. I think this
Yeah.
pandemic has really, isolated a lot of people. And so the more opportunities for making real, connections with folks on and offline, especially online during a pandemic that who knows how long that's going to go.
Right, exactly.
Reportedly.
Yeah, and I just talked to somebody. They said, "Hey, Ann, should we, for in January, should our post be about celebrating the new year?" And I said, maybe this post should be about comfort,
Hmm.
really, because if it's not really, nobody is looking at 2021 and going, "It's going to be all different. It's going to be all new. I'm so glad to be done with 2020," because we're looking at going right into that, right? We're still in this pandemic. We're still in the lockdowns and the shutdowns.
Yep.
So, all right. On that sad note, let's talk about how people find you, Brian.
Well, you got my web address on the screen there, lobigink.com. That's an INK, not an L.
Oh,
um,
yes.
it's a capital I, but in that font looks like an L too. The other way, the one, again, like going back to that platinum rule of how to engage with me, I like people to connect with me the way they like to be connected. So the one place where you can see any of my social media profiles is on my about.me page. So it's about.me/Brian Loebig. So that's a good place. So I'm on like everything because I'm in internet marketing. I'll be on
Right,
Clubhouse.
exactly.
I'll be on Clubhouse soon as somebody gives me an invite.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then hopefully as soon as you're in there, you'll invite me, of
Right,
course.
exactly. Only invite one
Exactly.
other person. When you get in there, you're only allowed to invite one other person too.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. So that is exclusive.
So
Look at that.
you'll be my person.
Well, thank you. I'd appreciate that. So I want to give a plug to you right now, and not just to your business, but to you as a person. Um, if you guys are looking for a speaker, if you're looking for somebody to come to one of your events, a networking event, a virtual event, Brian is a great person to bring in. He is a great presenter. What I can't stand my time to be wasted. I just can't. I can't stand to go to something where I feel like my time has been wasted. I'm busy. I've got kids. I feel like my time is their time. I run a charity. I don't want to take time away that's going to be wasted. So, what I like when Brian speaks is that he gives you something. You're going to, like I said, I listened to him in that one presentation and I walked away with pages of notes, and I've listened to several other presentations and done the same thing. He always gives something. So if you get a chance to have Brian speak at your event, please do that. Brian, give me one.
You might even get some live music like mandolin on my wall back there.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. And actually, when we stop, I've got to tell you about Zane's new gift for Christmas.
Oh, well,
He already got it because we're suckers. So,
nice.
so he'll see it and it'll be all right. So, all right, give me 1 second to tell everybody what we've got coming up. All right. So we have a bunch of people coming up. I think Chris Brogan should be next in this list. He may have come last week because this is the first time we're not actually going live. We're doing a lot of recording. We've got somebody coming up soon who's going to talk about podcasts and creating them, because so many people think this is rocket science, and it's not. It's easy, and you can start slow and you can start easy, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So we've got somebody who's going to talk about that. We've got a lot of great things coming, but I also want to remind you to please subscribe. We're coming up on a year. We're 105 107 episodes in, and we're going to continue to bring great guests on. We're going to continue to bring people on who have given you great information, and we're going to bring people back who we thought, oh my gosh, we could definitely do a round two with this person. So like Brian. So please do subscribe wherever you listen, whether it's on YouTube, please go subscribe on YouTube. But whether it's on YouTube or your podcast or wherever, and please do leave us a review. We really do appreciate that. Brian, thank you so much for coming on today. This was great. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.